came from. We will not only be able to run the tests in risk order, but we'll also be able to drop them in reverse risk order if we need to. So if we get schedule compressed, let's say that you had 6 weeks to test and then it gets cut down to 4. You now need to identify a third of your test to drop. How are you going to do that? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to look at those test cases that have the lowest level of risk. And those are the ones that you can give up with the least possible increase in the level of quality risk. You can afford to give up these tests because you're not worried about them as much as the others. So this test triage benefit, if you will, is one that you don't always need, but if you get schedule compressed, it is sure handy to have because there really aren't a whole lot of good alternatives to being able to do risk-based test triage if you're in a crunch, and so it's a very useful benefit when needed. So basically, this is all about making you more efficient, more focused, more targeted, and that becomes especially important when you're time constrained or resource constrained. Anytime you're dealing with constraints, it's more important to do everything right and do only the right things, and that's what risk-based testing is about. Now, sometimes people say, oh, well, this sounds good, this idea of risk-based testing, but my God, we're going to have to do this quality risk analysis, and it could take a long time, and isn't this going to add a lot of work? No, it will not. It will not increase the amount of effort required from the test team, and it's really only a modest amount of effort that we're asking for from the stakeholders. I'll get into this a little bit more later, but the amount of effort that for you as the test person, assuming you're going to be in charge of leading the quality risk analysis and so forth, really what you're looking at is less than 40 hours at the beginning doing the first risk analysis if you're doing a big project and it's following some sequential type of life cycle model, and then that's going to require only periodic updates from you. And 40 hours is pretty much worst case. We've seen it done, the initial risk analysis done in as little as 20 hours. And if you're following an agile type of life cycle, then your risk analysis really might be as brief as an hour or two and sort of bolted on to the whole process of defining the user stories. So in exchange for that moderate investment of your time, what you will get back is a really significant increase in your efficiency and your focus, and what you might very well find is that some things can fall off the plate, if you will. They can be dropped, and thus the long-term effect, as I said, will be to decrease the test effort. All right, now I've been talking about this in the abstract, and what I want to do now is shift gears totally to being very specific and taking a case study, because I think I can illustrate what this is like and what it feels like to work on a project that's doing risk-based testing, to be involved in that process better if I walk you through a case study. So one of our clients, CA, is a big fan of this stuff, and they've done a number of pilot launches of risk-based testing, and I've been myself and my associates have been involved in those. Been very successful, done them around the world. And this case study actually describes the first pilot of risk-based testing that we did for them at their offices in Pittsburgh. So there were 6 main activities that were involved in this pilot. The first 3 basically were done during the initial week of my being there, and then the remaining ones were done over the course of the project. So there's one-day training of the stakeholders on risk-based testing, how it works. There's a one-day quality risk analysis session, which I will describe in detail here in a minute. There's analysis and refinement of the quality risk analysis to make sure that we've got the risks right and the ratings right. Then, as the pilot continued during the project, there was an alignment of the testing with the quality risks, guiding the testing based on the risks, and assessing the benefits and lessons at the end as a sort of a retrospective. Now, obviously, you know, a lot of things went on in that project and in that week, and I'm going to try to touch on what I consider to be the key points to take away from that, the most important things. Obviously, there are more details about this pilot, and if you go out to the RBCS website on the, I believe it's the Resources Basic Library selection, you'll find an article that we wrote, myself and two of the other people involved in the pilot, describing the pilot. So I believe it's on the basic library page, or it might also be on the articles page. So you can read a full 10 or 12-page description that's a little bit more complete than what I can touch on here in this webinar, and get a better sense of the details. I also want to mention that in addition to this article out on the website, we do have a sequence of videos that we're doing over the year that are coming out, free videos. They're in the digital library, and they're also on, I think they're on iTunes and YouTube, and you can get to them there. And these will also go into more detail on specific points of the risk-based testing process, and they're free resources. In addition, there is a video of a 2.5-hour presentation that I did in Melbourne in Australia on risk-based testing that covers not just what I'm going to talk about today, but a number of other additional details like life cycle models and details of how to document and options for different ways of approaching things and so forth. So that's on the digital library page if you're interested in that. So this is going to be kind of a, and I wouldn't say a quick overview, but I would say a selective summary, if you will, or selective examination of some of the key things that happened during that pilot. And just want to make sure you're aware that there's a lot more additional supporting information available on the website, so you can drill into some of the details of what I'm going to touch upon here. But let's look at these 6 activities and talk about what happens with that and what did happen in this case. So the first thing, on the first day of the 1-week pilot, we did a training for the participants and the stakeholders. Now, I would encourage you, if you are going to do risk-based testing, that you do have a training session that ideally everybody who's going to participate, including the business and technical stakeholders, for the first time they go through that so that they understand what they're doing. Now, I know that sometimes that can be a tough sell, and maybe some of the stakeholders will say, oh, I really don't have time for that. But if you can get them in there, that's great. At the very least, you'd want to make sure that all the people in the test team who are going to be involved in risk-based testing have gone through this process. So the 1-day training